All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here today on this hot weather. I am Otilia Baraboy. I am the newly elected president of the Ethnic Heritage Council. And my colleague here, Roseanne Royer, who is the immediate past president of the Ethnic Heritage Council, will kind of lead the discussion today. I just want to remind you a few things. So keep your microphone muted. We are recording, and also we will get questions from you at the end of Delbert's presentation, and you feel free to post them in the chat. I will be monitoring this. Before we start, before Roseanne introduces our special guest today, I would like to acknowledge that we are on the traditional land of the first people of Seattle, the Duwamish people, past and present, and honor with gratitude the land itself and the Duwamish tribe. I would also like to say that this kind of acknowledgement is not a new practice started by colonial institutions. This type of acknowledgement is a traditional custom dating back centuries for many Native communities and nations. For us, non-Indigenous peoples, it is a way to reflect and show respect for the histories of the Indigenous people on whose land we live now and work. So thank you everyone for being here, and I'm looking forward to the discussion. And Roseanne, here you go, you can start.
Okay, I wonder does anyone have any questions about the operation of Zoom or whatever? I know that you can click on something that says show the speaker when the speaker is speaking, or use gallery. Is everybody pretty familiar so that we don't need to go through any of those? I think you're all more familiar and comfortable with it than I am. So there.
Yeah, so if there's a view button here. If you want to see everybody as we speak, just click on gallery view. I will keep the view on speaker. So this way for the recording it's better.
Okay, very good. Well, I join Otilia in welcoming you. On this very hot day, I do want to say a word about our incoming president. She's an accomplished educator. She's also a co-founder of an organization that's just 7 years old, but already has a national and international reach. That's the American Romanian Cultural Society Project. And Otilia, in her 20 years here, in forming an organization, she has schooled herself so well that she is better at running nonprofits than most of us who have been around forever. So we are really thrilled at the Ethnic Heritage Council Board to have her as new president. And we know you'll like getting to know her too. I do want to say that usually these roundtables are 2-hour programs, but not today. We engaged Delbert for 1 hour, and we're hoping by 2:45 that we get to the question and answer, and would really like this to be a conversation. It's really hard to do with Zoom. That's one of the disadvantages. You would think that it was easy, but it isn't necessarily. So we've asked people to have some questions ready, and also received a couple when you all registered. So we have those in hand. I wanted to say about Delbert that he, in all of his presentations, he appeals to us to take history seriously, to study it ourselves, study our own history, know your own history in the greater context. And in 1980, when the Ethnic Heritage Council was founded, we set as one of our goals to fulfill our mission to assist and support ethnic communities and their organizations and families to document their local experiences, their local history since they've been in the Northwest, and to preserve their precious records. The form that takes today is something I think some of you have participated in, the We Are History Keepers workshops that we created in 2016 with University of Washington Libraries, the Northwest Collections Division. Wonderful archivists, historians led by Ann Jenner. And I do have that website in the chat box. There are materials there for downloading. There's lots of guides. There are workshops intact that you can follow on that website. But I wanted to mention that because it was one of our interests in having Delbert here today. He's almost like our gold standard in a way. He is the model for how, by doing your research, looking for the facts, using known records to back that up, that you can come to the place that he has in his touring museum, and the work that he does with K through 12 kids, that you could take that which which you've researched, to the levels where you have exhibits and you have, you can do some work to educate and to, share information. Well, this month is historic. I think you all realize that, or maybe it hasn't really, hit us totally, but this was quite a month. Juneteenth became a state holiday for Washington State, and the president signed a bill that made it a national holiday. Delbert was so nice to agree to this, in spite of the fact that he's been through an arduous month of interviews and programs and all kinds of things to talk about Juneteenth. So what I asked him to do today is, I would like to know, because this will have meaning to all of us, how did he get started on this? What is it that caused that? What was that impetus that really got him going on this work that he has done? And how is his touring museum organized? Even though you can see it in, a link that we put in the chat box too. And then Juneteenth being almost an anchor, it's a kind of an event that if you really look at it and you really study it, you understand a great deal more than just that one incident itself. As someone said, this whole incident happened in Texas, and Texas's history, which is very diverse ethnically, but Texas's history is like the history of the United States. And in a way, I guess you could say that about most of our states. But it is an anchor. It is a way, to understand more. And so I would like, Delbert to tell us why we should care. Why is this so important? What is it that we can know about ourselves and our country and everything if we really understand Juneteenth? And with that, I am really proud and warmly welcome Delbert, who is truly a treasured educator among us and way beyond our communities here. Thank you. And Delbert, welcome. And
hello, everyone. Thank you, Roseanne. So, you said quite a bit, right? So I wrote two things down that kind of stood out. And yeah, there's a lot that's going through my mind. There's a lot to talk about. And I want to just create a space to say, I think it'd be a good idea to schedule another gathering. I think someone said that, so we can actually probably process this at a later time, because we're going to share some information in a way that hopefully will land from a personal standpoint. I think the one thing that I heard you said, Roseanne, that's so important is the personal work that's necessary. Mm-hmm. You said the gold standard and the model, and I asterized that because that's critical to my work. He who tells the story controls the narrative, right? And so, and I'm gonna talk about some Delbertisms. You're not gonna find these in books, but it's been my experience. If we can all agree that history's been taught primarily through a male patriarchal lens, can we shake our hands like this?
Yes.
Okay. And that doesn't mean it's right or wrong, but we're just gonna put context in regards to he who tells the story controls the narrative. My journey is really, really complex because it's really about my personal journey. Hopefully some of you have had an opportunity. Let me stop right there. I want to thank the Ethnic Heritage Council for inviting me, because it's so important that I acknowledge those organizations that asked me to speak, because everybody doesn't invite me because I speak from the heart, and everybody's not really ready for hard work. We just say that. So my work really centers around my own personal story. If you've seen the Franklin High School link that I believe Roseanne provided, I didn't know that I could choose how I wanted to identify until I got to college. It may sound odd, may sound unique, but through a racialized lens. I was seen as a Negro on my birth certificate and also colored, right? So before I go any farther, I must honor the elders in the room and ask for permission to speak. I see my elder, Miss Minnie Collins, on the Zoom, and so I must ask for permission to speak. I'm assuming that's a yes. I also see another one of my elders, Dr. Georgia McDade, and I'm so glad to see you. And I want to thank a good friend and my business associate, Miss Noni Irvin, who's going to run the slides in the back. Got to get those things up front, because when I get into, I call it character, because it's a spiritual journey that I'm on. It's hard for me sometimes to remember some of the important things that lay the foundation. So I was born a Negro, I was born colored. So just imagine I'm 66 years old, I was born in Detroit, raised in Seattle. My family left the year before the big race riots in the mid 60s. So just imagine this young colored boy sitting in front of social media, which was the TV set at this time. Wasn't no computers, wasn't no cell phones. And this conditioning was going on based on information. What did that look like? So some of you may remember the program Tarzan. Remember Tarzan?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Right. So we're going to use the chat if that's on mine. For bonus points, please put in the chat who played the lead role in Tarzan. Put in the chat. I'm going to test all. Put in the chat. Come on. And he was in the Olympics. And this is all important to the story. He's in the Olympics. And what sport was he in and what medal did he win? Put in the chat, please. Somebody say he's a Romanian actor. Okay, that's good so far.
Oh my gosh. You can hear me, can't you, Delbert?
That's okay. Let me help you. Let me help you, okay?
Was his first name Johnny?
Johnny Weissmuller. Ding, 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 ding. Right?
Yes.
So but listen to the context. He's Romanian, but he appeared white. He was an Olympic swimmer, gold medal swimmer. So look at the framing of the story so far, right? White male, right? So as the story goes, as a child, he was marooned or shipwrecked on a boat in the continent of Africa. And he had a friend that was a chimpanzee that had a name. You guys remember his name?
Oh my gosh.
See, you guys are telling, the name was Cheetah. So this is important. You may not think it's important. So here's a white male on the continent of Africa, labeled the king of the jungle, and people that look like me are running around with grass skirts and spears talking about ooga booga. So see, that's the lens by which it's being portrayed, but the way we're socialized, it's seen as entertainment. But I want to share with you, that's the way that landed with me. A young white child, king of the jungle, has a chimpanzee with a name. There's association as best friend, and he's on indigenous land talking about I'm the king of the jungle. Have you ever looked at it through that lens? Probably not.
No.
So that's just one story. The second one is this movie called Cleopatra. So let's see here. Who played Cleopatra?
Elizabeth Taylor.
Great. So, and where's Cleopatra? What continent is that? Africa. Come on, people. You guys are in history. Come on. Okay. And then the lead character was who? A white male. So now this is important. I'm looking at social media being socialized in a way that marginalized me. Number one, I'm colored, I'm a Negro. I'm watching a white male on the continent of Africa saying he's the king of the jungle. And then there's this movie Cleopatra that's played every year, and African people are not even part of the story. So why and where's my story in the story being African American? Okay, so now, So I go through school, never had any Black History Month in elementary, middle, and high school. University of Washington saved my life from a identity development standpoint. Why is that? Because in college, the professors have the autonomy to tell the stories the way they see fit. So it was mandatory in 1973 that all incoming freshmen took Black studies. All. So you see, so here, this is where I learned that there were students that looked like me from all of the United States call themselves Black. In my neighborhood, if you called me Black, we're gonna fight. If you call me African, we're gonna fight, because I've been disassociated with anything positive to these two words. Remember now, I'm colored and I'm a Negro. Now you're giving me some new words that I'm pushing against. What I had to learn is that these individuals in college have made a decision that they're gonna choose how they wanna be seen. They're gonna state how they feel about themselves. So Black was really a political statement, and African-American was something else that evolved. But in closing the story, if I call myself African-American and I'm never taught anything positive about the African part of my name in school, why would I connect to it? So that being said, that's where my journey started. So I'm self-taught. I've never learned anything in school, not even in college. At the University of Washington was just a smidgen of curiosity. So before we start the slides, I have a National Award winning traveling museum whose main premise is to provide information in a way that makes one curious. As a result of that curiosity, hopefully critical inquiry will kick in, and through critical inquiry, we'll get into this place called self-discovery, okay? So Noni, are you ready? So Noni and I Noni and I have been rolling for a while. So we have a deck of about 60 slides that we take into schools, pre-K to 12th grade. I'm just gonna show 3 for context. Here's my logo. Everything I do is strategic. This is the metaphor. This is the continent of Africa superimposed in the United States. And if you know anything about geography, you can get maybe 6 United States inside of Africa. What I'm showing here is Africans inside of the Americas. This is the metaphor. And so the question is, what are the unspoken truths? So this is Delbert's work at its finest. I love children. As you can see to the right over there, see that Ku Klux Klan robe? Some would say, well, Delbert, how dare you bring that Ku Klux Klan robe in there? You know what these children ask me? Mr. D, what's that costume? You see, they have no reference or relationship to that item. So here's a prime opportunity to educate. And one of the things, I forget your name, who's the new president, Roseanne called you an educator. There's a difference between an educator and a teacher. An educator creates spaces for dialogue and critical inquiry. A teacher basically provides information, children retain that, and then they're tested on it, not really asking them what they think or feel based on the information. So I really appreciate her acknowledge you as an educator, and so am I. So I get an opportunity to share with these children some truth about that costume in a way, hopefully when they get old enough and get indoctrinated into some beliefs and perceptions around those individuals, they'll see themselves as being agents of change. On the very back are storyboards and authentic artifacts as well, like slave shackles. So next slide, Noni. Please. So this is the very last slide, because we don't have a lot of time, but this is the American History Travel Museum, The Unspoken Truths. Now, I call it American history intentionally. Why? Because I can. He who tells the story controls the narrative. But the reason why I start with Mother Africa is so I can start off with a healthy foundation of identity for primarily Black boys and Black girls. Remember, if I call myself African American and schools historically start our history with the enslavement period, they will never know they come from geniuses. They come from artisans. They come from an amazing group of individuals that they'll never learn about. So Mother Africa is the foundation. Second section is called American Chattel Slavery, which is unique to any other slavery in the world, because American chattel slavery, and chattel implies movable property, but American chattel slavery had two foundations: dehumanization and the erasure of culture and identity. And don't get this twisted, family, it was all based on power. Talk about economics. The third section is Jim Crow. I don't teach civil rights. I teach about the racial caste system that's rooted in whiteness. And the last section is everyday items that people that look like me either invented, patented, or improved upon, which are African-American inventions. So this is Delbert's story. By going to the University of Washington, I learned that Mother Africa represents who I am, and the inventors represent what I'm capable of accomplishing. And slavery and Jim Crow was developed to keep me from who I am and what I can accomplish. So that's the story of Delbert and how he got here and some of the museum. So thank you, Noni. And so, you know, we're just ending with Juneteenth, right? And Roseanne talked about a lot about Juneteenth, and I really don't have a lot to say about it other than do some research, because there's still stories behind the story. And I believe that she had posted some information around Professor Annette Gordon Reed's book, which I think is incredible. So if you haven't read it, read it. And let me just share a little bit about the book, because what she does at the beginning of the book, she talks about her life experience in the story. She doesn't even talk about Juneteenth. The three things that really stand out to me in the very first chapter, and this is the American story. There were 3 murders of Black men, and the association was to a white woman. I don't know if you guys picked up on that. And in each case, the Black men had not done anything wrong. So that's what stood out to me. So we talk about American history. Whose history are we talking about? And so me teaching American history through an Afrocentric lens, I get a chance to see me in a story and help you see me in a story as well, okay? Which is so important. And my primary work is with children and young adults. So I want to say this because I see Miss Cynthia on the line. How you doing? And so she appears to be a sister of color, right? So what I would say for her, the image that Noni showed of Mother Africa, American chattel slavery, and Jim Crow, what I would like you to do, Sister Cynthia, is replace Mother Africa with your country or continent of origin. Because one thing we have in common, we come from a rich history, culture, and traditions. And slavery and Jim Crow represent how we've been oppressed. So the museum is merely a template for all BIPOC people to see themselves in the story, be it Asian, be it Pacific Islander, and if you're Native American, you can even replace Mother Africa before the invasion of white people, because we have this rich connection to identity and accomplishments and heritage. So I want to talk a little bit about ethnicity, if I can. Can we talk about that?
Yes.
So here's the question. And just, you know, Roseanne and I have been around the block a couple of times around wanting to collaborate, because there needs to be synergies in regards to ethnicities, right? So I would love for you all, do all of you have access to the chat?
Yes, good.
So This is what we do. This is what Noni and I do going into schools. Just because we're Zoom, there's always this wanting of me for connection relationship wise. And so if you wouldn't mind turning in your screens, I would love it, but you don't have to, but I'm really in the spirits. So here's the question. If you identify as a white person, please put it in the chat, please. This is not a test. This is not a test.
You mean just yes or no? You mean
Yes
Okay.
or no. If you identify as a white person, yes or no. Because the way some people appear to me, I don't know. So yeah. And I do this to children too, just so you know. I asked them how they identify, right? So if I had time, I say, Janice, how do you identify? I say, Larry, how do you identify? I would say, Amelia, how do you identify? So because of time, what I want you to do is just put in the chat, yes or no. You identify as white. Somebody says, Egypt, sorry. Do not be sorry because you're Egyptian. Okay. African, yes. So, okay. So just work with me, right? The reason why I'm asking, so now here's the question. For those that identify as white and that put in the chat, is whiteness an ethnicity? Yes or no? Put it in the chat. If you think whiteness is an ethnicity, put it in the chat. Okay, great. No, yes, got it. And there's no right or wrong answer. But then this is what Delbert does. I teach about race, the social construct of race, which was made up intentionally to divide us and to put whiteness at the top. Now, you're going to hear me talking a broad term, whiteness. It's broad. I'm talking about a culture. If it lands on you personally, let's talk about it because it's so important. Because these white men, these few white men had this recipe, you guys, about power, right? So guess what? What can we do? What can we create to make sure that we put ourselves to perpetually be in authority? We're going to set up a social construct of race. Now, race has no biological connection. None at all. It's all phenotype, skin color. But the question becomes, how has race formed our perceptions and our beliefs? All of us. That's not the answer. This is what I do going to school, family, because through our children, they are the ones that are going to need to help us save us elders, because things are jacked up, just in my view. And if we don't provide our children with some necessary information, I shared at a retreat recently, and I see you, Kathy. I shared at a retreat recently, and I want to share this. All of us has been dealt a hand. I love metaphors. Just imagine a card game and someone give you some cards and you've got to keep the hand you have, right? So we've all inherited a bunch of mess that's been racialized. So the question is, guys, I can't put my cards in and get another one. I must play the hand I'm dealt. So the question for us is, what are we going to do with these cards? This is the work that I really want to bring to this group and other groups. So I wanted to share that. And so I use primary resources, authentic artifacts. Authentic artifacts. Why? I use 2 quotes in my museum. Until the lion tells his tale, the hunt will always glorify the hunter. I must say that again. Until the lion tells his tale, the hunt will always glorify the hunter. So in other words, I'm the lion. I am so tired of the hunter, which is the white man telling my story. So guess what? I'm going to tell my story. He can do what he wants to do, but I'm going to tell my story. And you know what that story is going to look like? Brilliance and intelligence coming out of Africa, and amazing accomplishments in regards to inventions and inventors. So who's heard of the term STEM on the screen? Science, technology, engineering, and math, right?
Yeah.
Great. So let me ask this question. Who knows about the pyramids in ancient Egypt? Raise your hand. So this is not a trick question.
Yeah.
This is not a trick question. So would you say that a pyramid represents science, technology, engineering? We're going to add the A for art, M. We're going to come up with STEAM. Would you say that represents STEAM?
Yes.
So the question becomes, and these are just questions, so why are our schools continue to teach through a Eurocentric paradigm? I have the answers, but you know what my responsibility is? Is to push back. So the Mother Africa section is rooted in STEAM. So I provide them information. I don't tell them to believe it. And by the way, I would ask you to challenge everything you tell me. Why? People lie. Okay. His story. One man's interpretation of event in time. And because I have some people on here that identify from European descent, and I'm just going to touch on this white piece. And I forget your name from Romania. I forget your name.
Otilia.
Otilia.
I want to encourage you to continue to teach the children their story. Because white supremacy, has been my view, wants to erase that culture. And what happens at some point, and sometimes for survival, we assimilate. We talk about Ellis Island. So what was about your ancestors identified as white? If you are from Germany, Italy, Polish, or Irish, the question becomes, why is identifying with white so important if you know where you're from? That's not the answer. That's for you to hold. Mm-hmm. For you to hold. And part of the answer is because of those Eastern Europeans came over, they understood that in order to assimilate and have opportunity, they had to change their names. A lot of the Jewish people changed their names. Some of the Irish took the O off their names so they could assimilate. So in other words, their phenotype allowed them to do what? To blend in. And allowed them to have privilege. So now that we're at this place, a couple of generations away from Ellis Island, those identify as white, what's your responsibility to honor your ancestors? And these are questions not for you to answer to me. They're really questions to answer to the self. My work is about self-discovery. And I would want to believe, and I'm gonna go back to Rotilia, please, please, please do not let whiteness erase their identity, because it's set up that way, right? So, I had a couple more things I want to share, but that's enough because I really want to share with you. I get really emotional about this work, as you can tell, because I'm determined to help children understand their role and where they see themselves in the story. Because remember now, our children have been dealt this hand. We just left one of the most craziest elections, and I don't talk about politics or religion, they're too personal. When we look at January 6th, I'm not surprised. That's the Civil War all over again. So the last thing I'm gonna share before we go into questions, and this is for people of European descent or white, just for context. We're at a place in American history that's similar to the Civil War. Let me give you an example. And this happened. Just imagine two sons, two biological sons. One decides to fight for the Union. The other one decides to fight for the Confederacy. So they made a decision on which side of whiteness they're going to be on. Aren't we here right now again, family? Mm-hmm. We're here again. So the question becomes, what do you, and I'm going to talk to people of European descent primarily, what are you willing to lose to give up for the greater good? Mm-hmm. Your ancestors came over here risking everything for a new life because they were being persecuted in Europe. We didn't got time to talk about what's going on over there, right? There's a whole other story, but they came here for a better life. So the question becomes, they made major sacrifices. So now that whiteness has been presented in a way in terms of privilege, and it's the, I'm gonna use your term, Roseanne, the gold standard, the model, whiteness. How do you show up not as an advocate, not as an ally, but an abolitionist? I don't want any allies. not Delbert, not on Delbert's team. I don't want any advocates. I want abolitionists. What does that tell me? They're willing to sacrifice for the greater good. John Brown did it. There are a bunch of white people did it during the enslavement period and did it as well and during the civil rights movement. So the question becomes, what do you see yourself in the story? Mm-hmm. And I'm gonna end on that, Roseanne.
Well, Delbert, you know, I think it really, your ending leads to the first question that we received from the registrants, if I could just put that one down there, because this is where a person, having heard what you just said, wants to know, how do I do this? So this is what was written. We've recently retired to a town where there is basically no diversity except the local tribe and a few people from Mexico. It seems like the average person here would have never heard of Juneteenth, the many massacres and other atrocities. It seems that rural towns are the worst for racist attitudes. While having no exposure to people they are so bigoted against. There might be 1 or 2 Black students in the town, which surprised me. How can we show the Black students that they have an ally and truly care about their well-being?
Thank you. I read that. And so here's the question. And this is Delbert, the way Delbert approaches things, right? You'll see me bounce back from humanity lens and a racialized lens, right? Mm-hmm. So when they say we, who's we? I can make some assumptions. Mm-hmm. Are they white? Don't know. And we. So I'm just gonna dissect this, right? And so it said we, and they said average people. It said it seems. The part they talked about rural, I would disagree. I would rather be in a place where people were bigoted, and I know they're bigoted, than be in Seattle, where I have covert racists, right? I'm being honest. Liberal white people are scared the hell out of me. Woke white people are scared the hell out of me because I don't know what that means. So this we question. And this is the work. I would change the work to I, right? I'm not, so even if it's a couple, I would still make it personal, right? Mm-hmm. So if they really want to help these 2 Black people, I have issues of trust with white people. Listen to what I said. I don't have an issue with Roseanne. I don't have an issue with Ann. You know why? I don't even know these people. But this culture of whiteness have big trust issues. Can you guys guess why? Okay. So what I'm saying is, in order for someone white, for me, to become an ally, an advocate, I need to see. I don't need a Black Lives Matter t-shirt. I don't need a sign. I don't need a sign in your window. I need you to show up on a regular basis in spaces so I can see and become curious. You know what? I've seen them.
What do you mean by that? You mean you've seen them do something rather than just talk about it?
Absolutely. Because see, can I be real honest? White folks love to talk. White folks love to spend money. But the question is, where's the heart at, right? And so this is hard work. And here again, folks, this is about a culture of people, not about you specifically. But if it lands on you personally, let's talk about it. Because that's one of the biggest challenges me and some of my co-facilitators have. When we talk about whiteness as a culture, white folks take it personal. And you know what? I get it. But if you're not willing to talk about how that lands, it's going to show up in your behavior. Trust me. That's why I say I got an issue with white people, especially white men. And you know what? Where did Larry go? So he's no longer on the screen. So let me give you an example.
Well,
I know Larry. Yeah. So maybe, hey, Larry, thank you. So maybe maybe Delbert say, hey, Larry, how you doing? Larry say, hey, Delbert, how you doing? And we strike up a conversation. Mm-hmm. So what are we doing? We're starting to develop a relationship. You don't have to say he's an advocate or he's an ally, but at least he's here. And that's what I'm talking about showing up, Roseanne, right? He had a choice. He didn't have to be here. He could turn his screen off right now, but he's in the room. So when white people stay in the room with Black people and brown people and are willing to embrace some of these truths by which we live, and then we can start getting some healthy conversations around uncomfortable topics, okay?
Does anyone have a follow-up to any of that Delbert has just spoken? Just in case they do, Delbert, I want to invite people to do follow-up as well as, to just state their question.
I have a statement. This is Anne. My camera is acting up. So Delbert, I'm just loving this. My son just walked in, he's 11, and you have spoken to him at 2 different schools. And when he asked me to come in and look at a Lego creation. I said, no, I'm in a webinar. And I said, this guy, look, he's like, oh yeah. So the impact that you're having on our children, on this new generation, by your frequent I'm doing air quotes, getting to know people is fantastic. You're asking for us to at least meet you halfway there, do the work also to get to know you so you can get to know us. And right. I'm thinking, I get so excited when my son feels like he already knows you.
Okay, great. So Anne, thank you. Can I, how do I frame this? I would encourage you, for instance, when you spoke to your son, you said, this guy, right? So be mindful of language. I am Mr.
Right.
Delbert. I am Mr. Delbert Richardson. I am an elder. So when you say this guy, he's going to see me just how you present. Now, understand, I know you didn't mean any harm at all. I know that. But it's right. So important that we're really mindful of what we say around our children. And I'm so glad I went to his school, and I can't wait. Is he close to you?
Yes, he is. I can call him.
Okay, you can call him, and I want to ask him a question. Anybody else got something they want to ask?
I know Larry had a question.
Hey, Larry.
Just getting unmuted here. Delbert, we've maybe met briefly a couple of times at First AME, and I've seen the portion of the artifact collection that you've displayed there. For those of us who haven't seen this and experienced this, I just remember feeling kind of transfixed by the artifacts. You talked about the shackles, the chains, that portion of your display. Over the last year, I don't know if you've been doing virtual presentations of artifacts, but I'm just wondering if you could comment on what you see the differences between presenting these physically in front of people and then doing it virtually, and what may be lost in that.
Well, let me just say this here. I don't know. Can you guys see this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
These chains. So my ancestors wore these. So whether you're in person or not, I see Myra's face. So Larry, not a lot gets lost, okay? So the question becomes, what would possess one human being and treat another human being this way, right? So we'll get back to pre-COVID and post-COVID events, but the symbols are still there, right? So, and I could tell in your voice, Larry, that you were struggling a little bit, right? And this is important. There's no growth without struggle, people. I want to be comfortable all the time. I don't know about you, but there's no growth without struggle. So Larry, thank you for sharing that. So Anne, is your son back?
Yes, he's right here. Let me
Can I
turn
ask him a
the,
question? How old is he?
11.
Hey there, what's your name?
Finn.
Great. Have you seen my museum before?
Yeah.
So what do you remember?
I don't remember much.
Great. That's okay. Now, do you think what I do is important?
Yeah.
Why is that?
I don't know. You seem like an important person.
That's good enough for me. Can we give him a hand, please? See, he wasn't expecting that, but this is what I do. Hey, folks, that's our future right there.
Well, and Delbert, don't you think he did as well as most adults would?
No, he did better. No, he did
Did
better.
better.
You know why? He turned the screen on. Okay.
Right.
Thank you, Ann. Thank you so much. Hey,
Well, Delbert, can we go to see if someone else has a question? We really would love to give them this
Absolutely.
opportunity.
Absolutely.
Is there another question out there in the
I
among the
see
participants?
Myra. Go
Mira?
for it.
Yeah. Mira, she's of Serbian heritage.
Thank you, Delbert. This is, as Anne said, really inspiring and very educational for all of us, for at least for me. My question is on how do we, as members of our own communities, spread this understanding, raise this understanding that is very ground in the systemic differences of the way in which I, as an immigrant to this country, looking the way I look, am treated versus someone who's been here since 1500s and 1600s. And what do we do to make that I'm sorry, I'm trying to confuse the topic, the issue, but some of the people with whom I speak, who come from my community, feel, even though they don't say it, they feel as if we were to share the rights, the dignity, the sense of who we are as human beings, we would lose something. So those that are in privilege would lose something. Mm-hmm. How do we share that understanding that this is not the case, and what's good for everybody is good for the whole community and society?
Great. So let me just, if I can, and this is Delbert, I don't do we stuff, guys. I do I. Because it's so important, because, you know, I don't have any control over no one else. So what I've learned, if I get enough eyes together, then I got a we, right? Because what my biggest struggle is, and I'm just going to share this, this is just Delbert, I want some Black and African-American people to be farther along than they are. And there's nothing wrong with it. The question is, what am I doing? And when I focus on that, then it becomes a little bit easier and not so much overwhelming. But speaking your truth is so important. That way I can go to bed at night knowing I've done my part. So we can talk about that more, but it's stay in the eye, because when I want to model what I want to see in the world, that's only control I have, okay? Thank you for that question.
Mm-hmm. Can we take another question then? Is there another one out there among you? Delbert says, be curious. If they don't ask Delbert, I'm going to ask. So, Delbert, I would like to know this with regard to your work with children. It isn't as if the parents of the kids are of the mind that Ann Jenner is about her son listening to you. There's trouble around the country about work like yours going into the schools and pushed too hard. That what is the meaning of that? Is that really getting us somewhere, or is it driving us further apart when we have people like Delbert Richardson going in there and talking about African heritage and encourage children of color. The thing is, do you get support from the school districts? Have you had criticisms for going in there and doing that? Because I think we have to say this, there's an underlying fear that people of color are going to take over the country. Take over, those are the words that I hear. So, do you get support? Are you, are the parents aware? Are they appreciative? How does that go?
Great. So you said a lot. Let me just share something with you. Schools represents beacons of institutional and structural racism, plain and simple. And I love metaphors, right? So just imagine structural and institutional racism is like a mold, right? So regardless of how you go in, if you stare long enough, what's going to happen? You're going to get the mold, right? And so that's how I define structural and institutional racism. Absolutely, I get pushback. And I expect it. But I don't let that stop me from what my calling is. And so one teacher at a time, one classroom at a time, and now one school district at a time, over 15 years, I've said the exact same thing that I'm saying now. And you know what? Society is finally catching up the importance of my work, and it's making a difference. And just so you know, I don't want to work with adults. They're too damn much work, excuse my language. And you know why? And this is why. We're so rooted in our beliefs already, in our perceptions. And sometimes change is way too much work. And I get it. I get it. So.
Is there
Can I ask the question?
Yes.
How you doing, Dr. McDade?
I hope she has her sound on.
Everything I have to be quiet and just watch my friend tell his story. So go ahead, tell your story.
No, but I just want to acknowledge you, and I would love to hear your voice, though.
What do you want to hear?
Well, let me just say this. Based on what you've heard, how's this landing with you? And is there anything you want to share as a result of what you heard?
Thank you, Delbert. We'd love to hear from Georgia.
You know, I love you, Delbert.
Excuse me, Georgia. Roseanne,
yeah.
Can we please call her Dr. McDade?
Oh, but Georgia and I are friends.
So, but hold up. Everybody on the screen's not her friend, though. This is what Delbert does, you guys. This is important.
Delbert, I'm with you. Dr. McDade, we would love to hear from you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And thank you.
Okay.
Hello, everybody. I've known Delbert for a very long time. I don't even remember the year that we met, but when I met him, his memorabilia, I don't like to say that because his stuff is too powerful, but it was all in the trunk of his car. And I was telling him, you have to find a way to show this or whatever. And the first time I saw him display it somewhere, I was just so happy. So our paths cross often. He calls it the unspoken truths. And like him, I want the truth spoken. I just wrote an article telling people how nice it is to have Juneteenth, but they've gotten that wrong. Juneteenth was not the day that all the enslaved people were free. Congress, all of those people, all the educated people, Harvard, Yale, they get it wrong. The last person was freed in December 1865. It took 156 years to come up with the wrong date. And so many of them voted for it. Oh, yeah. And how many of those same people refused to vote for HR 1?
Yeah.
How many of those same people still don't want me to vote? That's what I'm thinking. And I'm just wondering how many. I love, Delbert always says, not we yet, we have to get eyes straight. And I just wonder how many people in the country have the same attitude. Yeah, let's vote for Juneteenth. I'm all for Juneteenth, you know. Mm-hmm. But how many people would vote for HR 1? How many people out there still don't want me to vote? The 15th Amendment, what was it, 1870? I mean, that's a long time ago. And when I was 14, I was president of the NAACP Youth Council, and I was helping people register to vote. I don't tell my age often, but I'm gonna tell you today, I'm 75, and I'm still helping people register to vote and keeping people on the polls. I don't know how many times, and this is all over the country. I call, I email, and I said, there are all of these people who think they're registered to vote, and they aren't. When I was, well, not even a teenager in Louisiana, they would call it, they said, purge the polls. You get a postcard, and what that meant was you had to go register again. My daddy always had to go back a second time, maybe a third. My mom always got, but I thought everybody did that. I was an adult in graduate school in Georgia when I learned that everybody does not purge the polls. In here, 2021, 2020, they're still purging the polls. They have different names for it, but they're still doing it. I was 9th grade when Miss Lawrence told me about gerrymandering. I said, oh, I don't have to worry about that. That'll be gone by the time I'm an adult. And here I am, an adult. An elder, and it's as gerrymandered as ever. So when I listen, and I go through this thing, I'm just not gonna listen today. But I always feel I should support you. Anybody who tries to tell the story, because there are a lot of us telling the story. We just don't have enough people listening and then acting. I have friends who'll give me money for a good cause in a minute. You know, they may even come to hear us read, whatever. But we need so much more than that. If we stay here, it took 156 years. I wish I'd forget that, but it took 156 years. How many more years will it take for that 14th and 15th Amendment to become a reality for everybody? You would think that nobody, but especially people in Congress, would be trying to prohibit voting. And who's trying to do this more than anybody? So I'll be quiet, but thank you.
Thank you.
I do feel a little better though. Thank you.
That's right. Thank you, Dr. Madej. And so she said something that's so important. I'm into feelings, family. Can you tell?
Yes.
And we have been socialized to not just not express it, but calcify our feelings. And what that happens is it starts to manifest in how we interact with each other, right? So let me share this before I forget, because I want to give you an example how those same people in Congress that Dr. Madej is talking about, how they tell this story. I see Kathy on the screen, my Asian sister, right? We all know that the Asian hate bill got written and got ratified immediately by Biden, right? Are all of you aware that the anti-lynching bill has not been signed? So there's this paradox of he who tells the story controls the narrative. These people in Congress, they want to do things so they feel good. This has nothing to do with Kathy and my Asian sisters and brothers, but this is what they do. They throw these bones out to appear a certain way, but at the same time, the anti-slave lynching bill is still not signed. Come on. My elder, Georgia, my elder, many, I stand on their shoulders. They are tired. But guess what? Their heads are unbowed, right? Mm-hmm. So I'd be damned if I don't do what I do for them, because I'm on their shoulders. I'm about to start cursing, so I'm done.
You know, Delbert, and here I am calling you Delbert, and I'm really nervous about that now. Is that all right?
Sure. I'm not Dr. Delbert, so I'm okay.
Yes. I would like to say that I'm grateful that you asked for Dr. McDade to speak, because just that segment of hers is something that I believe should be seen. All of her emotions, all of her leaning in, the way you often do, leaning right into the screen and saying how desperate, what a horrible situation. How can people vote so easily to have
Roseanne, I gotta cut you off. I'm so sorry. Dr. McDade and I are tired of talking. I want to hear Nancy speak, and I'm just making it. I want to hear Nancy speak. I want to hear Ann speak. I want to hear somebody else speak. We're tired of speaking, Roseanne.
No, that's fine. And I did ask people to speak, and if we'll go a little further and you'll spend a little more time, we should have.
No, I'm talking about after the Zoom is over.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So,
okay.
And I'm just making, and Nancy, please don't take it personal. I just saw your name. So my point is, we always show up.
Right.
We understand the shoulder we stand on. This is Delbertism. I want white people to speak with passion that Dr. McDade did. I heard, I forget her name, the board member, speak with passion, right? Heard the other sister from Serbia speak with passion. I want other people identified from European descent to speak with passion, because white silence is a form of violence. That's all I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. See,
well,
Georgia got me, Dr. McDade got me all fired up here. Okay. Yeah. That's what we do.
Well, I think we're all quite moved by what she has said and you have said. Delbert, we're at that 3 o'clock hour, and you made an interesting suggestion at the beginning that why don't we have another conversation like this, so we can have more people like Mira and others ask those questions that are, they're troubling issues for them. We live in our communities where we may support something, but that doesn't mean that the people who are from our same background feel the same way. It's a huge, it's difficult. But what do you say, Delbert? Shall we bring this to a close here? Anyone else have a question? Will you take one more question?
Absolutely.
Okay, so who do we have out there who has a question ready? And let me look at this sheet that we received too. How can we, they're using we, as citizens, help to educate communities that have such little regard for history and little or no exposure with other cultures and the true American history?
So Roseanne, thank you for picking up on the we. You see the power of that, right?
Yes.
Who is we? So what I got from that, the assumption is that they're at a different place than other people are. I don't know who these people are. So so from an I standpoint, what are they willing to do to be the change they want to see in the world? I'll keep saying that over and over again, because this is Delbert. I want everybody, you see all these books behind me? I want everybody to have a library. Well, sounds great. But the question becomes, in your sphere of influence, in your circles, in your communities, how do I show up through my heart versus my head? Okay, because this is all about humanity, and race was set up intentionally to distract us from our hearts.
A wonderful closing indeed, Delbert. Thank you very much. I just so appreciate and really enjoy your leaning into the camera and speaking with that enthusiasm and that passion. And I feel invited to say what I think. And I have to say though that I have trepidation that I may be saying the wrong thing. And so I think that this is what troubles people who are good of heart, but they really are afraid that they just can't pick the right words. And I don't know what we do about that, because it's stopping people from speaking out.
Can I say this? And you're correct. One of the tenets of white supremacy, one of the first one, is perfectionism. So we must be willing to make mistakes, embrace those mistakes, and guess what? Learn from them.
Mhm.
So important. Okay.
Okay. Well, Delbert, does anyone want to make a closing, just a comment to Delbert?
I had a question again. Sorry to be asking another one. How could I picked up on the I.
Give her a hand, you guys. Give her a hand. Yes. And that's big. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you. No, thank you for pointing it out. I had never thought of it before.
Yeah.
So how could I respond to someone who says, what do you want to change our history, to break our structure, to break our statues, to change the names of our bases, military bases, and so on, in order to acknowledge what happened to the past? So how do you, what's your argument to that?
I don't argue, just so you know. But I understand. I just say, I just want to be seen and heard. And so let me just say this, because this is a sensitive topic about monumental statues, and there's people that go on both sides. I say keep them up as a testament to what we don't want to do again. So let's have the true stories next to those Confederate statues, right? Because when you take them down, you give them a pass. That's me.
Yeah, yeah. I say almost the same thing.
Yeah.
I want notes next to them.
Yes.
I really don't want any of them, but I have a friend who said, I haven't been to Richmond on Confederate Avenue I haven't. I mean, I grew up in Louisiana and I know a few of them, but, and I go to New Orleans often and I remember those, but it may very well be that I do have the history. And so they can stay and I know better. But for people who don't know, but I would love to put footnotes, head notes all over.
I got one for you. Yeah, Thomas Jefferson. Have a footnote. Here's Thomas Jefferson. He raped Sally Hemings.
Yes, yes.
See what I'm saying? He rapes. So you can say all those accolades you want about the Declaration of Independence and all that stuff, but let's talk about that other side of his story. Because it's American history.
36 signers of the Declaration of Independence. Now, I want my independence. But I'm going to keep all of these people. It's like, what sense does that make? So I want everybody to know what I think it's 36 of the signers owned slaves. It's something about that. These people who were in such terrible, such dire straits in England, and nobody ever put them in prison, maybe for a debt or two. Nobody sold their children, their spouses, but they wanted freedom, and they came over here and they took other people's land to get this freedom. And somehow they just don't see me and mine. I don't count. And I know I count. But there is this point where if everybody around you says you're invalid and you go around saying you're valid, they'll just get rid of you because they know you aren't well. You know? And that goes back to who gets to tell the story. My favorite proverb is very close to his. Until the lion tells the story, the hunter will always be glorified. I just keep knowing that.
So Roseanne,
yes,
we are telling the story now, and the hunter doesn't like our telling the story.
Right.
But we cannot be quiet. We have to keep telling the story, and you guys have to tell the story. There are all of those people who listen to you, and they're not only will they not listen to me, they aren't going to be in my company. I told Peggy McIntosh in her white privilege, she made so much headway because she's white, although she's a woman. There were all of those people who would listen to Becky McIntosh just like that. They listened to Morris D just like that. But they won't listen to me, PhD or whatever. You know, they don't. I don't know. I always said I lost so much time teaching because it took about 30, maybe 30%. Somehow I figured that out before people got to the point that they believed I could do it. Because too many people believe the only thing we can do is entertain and do sports. And God, to say Shakespeare, oh, you just don't know how often people thought, well, yeah, there's much to be done.
Thank you. Roseanne, can I ask for some grace? I would love for Janice to tell her story and close us out, please.
Yes,
She put something in the chat, so I would love to hear her say this stuff, okay, for the group.
yes, thank you. Certainly, yes.
Yes, I look white to anybody. And it's obvious, just I only have through pictures of family that I do have Black ancestry. There was an unwritten rule in our household by my mother that if she did nothing else, I'm glad she did this. She said, or she just like an unwritten rule, do not treat anyone differently because of their color. That made such a difference in my life. Just helping me love everybody. But I think what I love more than anything is that, sorry if I get a little bit choked up, but when I hear people make a racist remark, I don't hesitate for 1 minute to say, did you know I have Black ancestry?
Yes, yes, very good.
There is silence.
Very good.
They're embarrassed, yet I can go on, and yet I don't have to experience what my ancestors did. But I feel like it's a responsibility to poke them in the ribs when someone says anything that's even close to racist. It really gets me.
Thank you. So Janice, thank you. So,
Yes.
Is Janice part of the Ethnic Heritage Council?
I don't think Janice is a member per se, but
I'm the one that,
Janice,
I'll out myself. I'm the one that moved to that rural place.
Oh, that's okay.
oh yeah, but no, Janice is affiliated, had been in the past with the Kent International Fair that Ethnic Heritage Council has participated in. So that's how we know.
Great.
Janice.
So my question, Janice, have you shared that story with this group before?
No, I shared it once with, it was, maybe Nancy will remember the name of the event, but it was at the Kent Senior Center, where we were celebrating Indigenous people's culture, a meal, and we went around the table and they gave us an opportunity to anybody just to kind of pour their hearts out.
So thank you. The reason why I'm saying I have an ask that you share that story as often as you can, because I gotta believe when you share your story, others may find the courage to tell theirs. Okay.
Yes, I've told other, like Black people of my ancestry, and they'll say, no one has ever come up to me and said that they have Black ancestry as a white person looking, And I know that if I am one, there's plenty out there.
Oh boy.
Everybody.
Well, yeah, we all originate
It started in Africa.
Yeah. And you know, like much closer in generations,
Yes, yes.
it's obvious. And you know, and I look at my cousins and I'm like, yep, traits are still coming down.
Yeah. So thank you, Janice. Roseanne, I think that's about it.
Yes,
Me. Okay.
yes. Delbert, thank you very much for being with us today. I am still harboring this thought that you are inviting us to stay in touch with you, for all of us to learn from each other. And, you know, individually take the steps. We're here, everybody's here today because they care. And so I think you really helped us make some next moves and think about what we can do. And just thank you for the work that you continue to do. Dr. McDade is out there all the time. I see her at all kinds of events. She's everywhere. And she has just been an ambassador from the Black community that just, you know, unparalleled. So thank you all. Thank you, Dr. McDade, and the rest of you. Thank you for being here today. I think we have a lot to think about, and there's work to do.
Everybody stay cool, please. Drink
Yeah.
water.
All right, Otelia, do you want to close off the meeting then? And
Sure. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for such a passionate discussion. I had so much, you know, to think and to say also. So I think we need to schedule another meeting, especially as Eastern European. I'm very fond of that because we have different history, and it's hard. It's hard, Mira, right? To understand and navigate all these discussions, especially for somebody who has parents, grandparents who fought in the Second World War, and it was a war, a racial war of hate, and we have that in
yes, and my
in our
heritage too,
genes. We remember that, and
yes. Mine that is
so much.
Croatian and Serbian, you know, a very similar thing. Yes, I think that that is, and hopefully in person, I think it would be extremely powerful. It is in any case, but to do an in-person gathering like this would be very powerful and helpful.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
all,
You're an
everybody.
inspiration, everyone. And Dr. McDade, we've been talking about the power of Proverbs by email. Thank you so much.
Yes, and she said that one is her favorite, Delbert,
Yes.
the one about the lion.
Right.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, thank you again. Have a nice weekend.
Thanks, everyone.
Please stay in
Bye.
touch and stay cool.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.